come to the end of the business and markets week here on Frontier Opening Bell. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I am Boston Omofaye, and of course, this is our first Friday and the weekend in the new month of May, where we just sneak in just about 2 sessions in the new week, with May the 1st being an international Labor Day holiday across various jurisdictions. But getting back to technically the first trading day of the month of May is what you see now on your screen. The Nigerian markets went big across board. The banking sector was up by 3% on Thursday. The insurance sector gathered about 0.6%. The consumer goods also made some gains, roughly 1%. Nigerian Breweries shares was up. The Flamings PLC shares was also up. You got UBA in the banking sector, Access Corp, FBN Holdings, Zenith Bank, and Jitco shares in the green territory. So the banking sector are now moving forward, looking for approvals from the central bank to move on with their 2-year recapitalization program, which is now underway until the end of April 2026. In Cote d'Ivoire, the BRVM failed to snatch back the 220, reached that level, broke that level again, slightly lower by 0.34%, still holding the 219 index territory. The Egyptian stock market finished the final trading day of the week solidly in the green, 3.34%. The Nairobi stock market was down sharply by 1.54%. The JSE down by just 0.04%. The resources went down 1.45% despite gains that we saw in MTN shares, Pepcor, Exaro, and a few other names such as Spar and Telecom. So all these were in the news yesterday. The Zimbabwe stock market, the index, traded water slightly by 0.6%, and a very flattish finishing line for the Ghana stock market, just 0.01% for the GSE. Those are your market numbers. Just give you a bit of a roundup of the markets as we all came back after the holiday. International Labor Day holiday. Let's move on and look at the top stories within East Africa with the new CEO at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Frank Ngwiti has taken office. He took office yesterday, formally speaking, and he held a very small meeting where he says he's going to focus on reforms of the Nairobi Securities Exchange. He says his new agenda will be reforms, and building on the existing agenda that's been left by his immediate predecessor. We'll see more about the new CEO of the Nairobi Exchange moving forward. And job losses are hanging around Kenyans as the government looks to cut about 150 parastatals. That's a big dip. Of course, the government of President Ruto is also looking to sell off a number of parastatals or state-owned enterprises, which includes hotels such as the Hilton Kenya, where the government has some chunk of shares that's been divested for billions of shillings that the government is trying to claw back and put in the treasury. Well, while this cutting off about 150 parastatals will impact political economy as well as job losses in Kenya is anyone's guess, but let's just leave it there until we'll see how things move on. Still sticking with Kenya, the NTSA, which is the transport regulator, says it's revoked 64 transport licenses, which includes some transport agencies or companies owned by some SACCOs, as it were. The Bank of Uganda, moving on, has issued new rules as far as mobile money transactions are concerned. The Deputy Governor spoke about that on Thursday. In the meantime, Ethiopia Airlines says it's ambitious to get 30% passenger surge this year. That's the news from one of the biggest airlines on the continent. Let's move the needle to West Africa. Transcorp Hotels join other listed companies to report the quarterly earnings. Nigerian Breweries shares went up on Thursday on the back of its latest earnings. Guinness Nigeria also reported earnings. Transcorp Group reported its first quarter earnings. Transcorp Hotels reported the largest hotel and hospitality and leisure company in Nigeria, reporting 72% growth in turnover, 5 billion naira in net profit. Occupancy rate about 82% between January and March this year. In the meantime, the good news for Nigerian bank depositors is that the NDIC, the Insurance Corporation, has revised sharply upward the insurance cover for bank deposits. Well, the figure previously was 500,000 naira for your deposit in any commercial banks. When it goes down, that figure has been raised to 5 million naira. That's a big jump in terms of the insurance coverage. The value also increased. You have a similar threshold set much higher for deposits in microfinance banks, primary mortgage institution banks, and for mobile money operators in Nigeria. For Momo customers, the figures been moved from about 500,000 naira to about 5 million local currency. And that's good news. I talked about quarterly earnings, getting the market back on track after that very sharp dive that we saw in the month of March as the banks were wrapping up their proposals to be presented to the central bank for the recapitalization exercise. UBA Group has issued an announcement that is going to do a 1-year 78th anniversary. It's going to be a full year, and that is scheduled to kick off with a press briefing on May the 6th. That will be next Monday. We're covering that for you here on Front Africa Reports. And the BRVM, the French-speaking West African Stock Exchange roadshow to the JSE, of course, still on track for next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. On Tuesday, which is the first day of the roadshow, there will be a formal launch of the Côte d'Ivoire's commodity exchange called the BRVM CI. We're following that for you. It's a COMEX, the first of its kind for Africa's largest cocoa producers, for producer and exporter as well. We're looking into that conference for you from Monday next week. In Liberia's central bank says there's no change in the deadline of May 15 for to scrap the old banknotes in the country. Those are your headlines, West Africa. Let's move on. Look at Southern Africa, news coming through with the JSE, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and the Saudi Arabia Stock Exchange, the Tadawul inking an MOU, putting that together according to a statement from the CEO of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, that this new deal will allow for cross-border listing between Africa's biggest exchange and, of course, Saudi Arabia. That's one big news, a handshake, if you want to put it, across the Sahara Desert into the Middle East for the South African exchange. This deal also covers a lot of other partnerships across the securities market between the two exchanges. Congratulations to this agreement, and we hope that takes the JSE farther out of the continent and globally speaking. In the meantime, VFX in Zimbabwe, the dollar exchange in Victoria Falls says it's going to list what they call contract for differences called CFD, which is a form of derivatives trading. That is also coming on stream next week. Congratulations to the VFX. Congratulations also, a lot of congratulations. Friday, for the RMB, the Rand Merchant Bank in South Africa awarded the best trade finance bank in South Africa by the Global Trade Review. In the meantime, reporting season earnings, African Sun in Zimbabwe listed hospitality hotels company reporting revenue growth of 29% in the first quarter. Occupancy is about up by 52%, but reported a loss of $0.36 million for the period under review. Again, you can understand with the whole inflation, exchange rate, and the value of the local currency. Econet, however, says it's opened the first free remittance corridors for Zimbabweans. Those are your headlines in Southern Africa. What does it look like this Friday as we move on to the northern part of the continent with Egyptian gold report, Egypt reporting gold purchases are down 17% in the first quarter. However, EFG Hermes, which is one of the biggest financial services company in Egypt and across the North African corridor, assesses close to 500 million Egyptian pounds senior unsecured note issuance for HSB. And Radisson Hotels has reported the opening of a second iconic brand in Casablanca. That's very beautiful city of in Morocco, and that brings to 9 the total number of hotels that Radisson International has in the North African economy. You want to check that out. And finally, the EU is pledging about 7.4 billion euros to back Egypt's green economy initiatives. That we'll see how that plays out as we look at this relationship, and support from the EU to get the biggest economy north of the continent going green in terms of climate adaptation and sustainability. All that's in the news this morning. as we wrap up the business and markets week. There's a whole lot of grounds to cover, but we'll come back to you bright and early on Monday. I am Boston Omofaye. Do have a great weekend, everyone. Enjoy it, and I'll see you back on Market Street.